writer, podcaster, artist, or indie creator of any kind, you'll know what a struggle it can be to find creative services at an affordable price. And that's where Gig comes in. The global indie group has everything you need under one roof. You can connect with publishers, writers, editors, artists, videographers, musicians, composers, voiceover artists, podcasters, and more.
Hi, I'm Lori Calcaterra, and I'm on Gig.
Hi, this is Ben from Comic Book Squares, and we're on Gig.
This is Jorge Medina, and I'm on Gig.
Hi, I'm Morgan, and I'm on Gig.
I'm Lauren.
And I'm Matt, and we're Hops Geek News,
a geek-centric, beer-loving pop culture podcast.
We're on Gig.
Cheers.
Hi, I'm Letzi, and I'm on Gig.
Hi, I'm Witty, and I'm on Gig.
We're on Gig.
Head to globalindiegroup.com now and check it out.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Indie Comics Relay. I'm your host, Keith Gleason, creator of the Mighty Mascots and promoter for the Plastic City Comic-Con. With me is always Johnny C., creator of Sartana, Surrounded by Death, and The Pond for Roger Morocco.
For my good cousin, Roger. Love him to death.
And our third co-host, Harry G., graphic artist extraordinaire.
Hey, everybody.
What is going on, fellas?
This week I'm down and wind from the smoke, so it's good.
Yeah.
You don't want to catch a contact high.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
which
so we
happened to somebody who I was with yesterday when we went to go see Dune.
Oh really?
They just happened to be in the vicinity, and like halfway through the movie, they're like, I think I'm fucked up.
It could be the movie.
They got some of the spice. They got the spice.
They got a taste of the spice. That bomb Z.
Yeah, right.
I was doing.
So awesome. we got a great episode tonight. Now this one's a little out of the norm for us. It's not like our typical, like we're doing a little banter and having like an interview with a creator and going over Kickstarters and stuff. This is actually a writers roundtable, which was like something we were thinking about. Like we're trying to come up with something unique, to bring in like a couple of our writer friends and also give them some promotion as well. But we came up with some questions for like indie comics creators, and like we're gonna get like not only just my and Johnny's perspective, but perspective of three other great indie creators.
I'd say mainly them, because we want to get their opinions, and maybe we interject where we
I would say, like, why don't we go last, Johnny? Me and you will go last, and we'll go around the room, and we'll start with someone different every time. So I have 5 questions made up. I know Harry has 1 or 2, and I don't know if you came up with any, but you may, as we go through, maybe you'll have something that
much like writing itself, you'll find discoveries along the way.
I like that. Yeah, well, that's how you roll usually when we're doing interviews. You like kind of like listen, and then you come up with something. So that'll probably do it,
There's a radio show that I listen to that I've brought up before in past shows, Coast to Coast it's called.
Oh yeah.
And the the host of the show, he's like on Ancient Aliens. He's got like jet black hair. It looks like uses like shoe polish in his hair, and a mustache, but you can tell when he's. I get so aggravated when he's like interviewing his guests because you can tell he's like reading off a list. He's like, so how'd you get started, and what and how'd you discover? What was your first abduction? And the guy answers the question, but like then he just jumps into the next question, doesn't react to the
yeah,
answer.
right. Like he doesn't listen to what they're saying.
So
Larry King does the same thing, or did the same thing.
Yeah, right. God rest him.
All right, so without further ado, let's bring in our panel of indie comics writers tonight. I'm just gonna start with whoever's window is first here, and that is Mr. Jorge Medina. What's
in
up?
this corner?
What's up, guys? Thank you for having me on. Appreciate you inviting
definitely.
me to this writers table. It's gonna be fun.
Absolutely, man. And I know you have your writer show on YouTube, so I thought you'd be the perfect. And you're one of our favorite guests, George. So
and we both did the show recently.
Yeah, you know what? Yep. So Harry, you haven't done it because you can't come on. We could talk storytelling.
I'm only an artist, so I can't.
Only an artist. Usually it's only a writer. We win one for once.
We won one.
We won one for once. Yeah.
So it's funny because I've had the next one of the two guests coming up. I've had him on the show. I had Tony on the show also. So I'm missing Nandor. So I'm gonna have to get Nandor next.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then speaking of Nandor, he is the next one in our window here. Nandor, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this ever since you talked to me about it. I've been really excited to be here, and I love Indie Comics Relay. This is one of my favorite shows to come on. So thank you for having me.
We love you and your silky smooth voice, Nandor.
Dude, that voice, bro.
Smooth, like chocolate mousse.
I'm like this. What?
Yeah.
Better than David Allen Duché or whatever his name is. Boucher.
But remember, Nandor, last time you were on the show, we had an awesome writing conversation.
We sure did with Julius. Yeah.
So when we thought of this episode, I was like, got to get Nandor back. He had some great answers.
It came from that episode. This kind of idea.
I think so.
Yep. Very cool. Awesome.
And then let's bring in our third and final guest, Mr. Tony James.
What's up, guys?
Hey, man. What's going on?
This is like the 97 Dream Team right here. Everybody that's in here.
Absolutely. That's what I wanted, and I knew we'd all get along. We're all fun guys, and but we can also talk serious about writing, which is the huge key, But yeah, no, before we start with the questions, let me just zip through the chat real quick. We got a full house tonight, and a lot of people watching. Was amazing, We got Scary Good joining us tonight. What's up, Scary Good?
Hello.
What's going on?
We got my wife, Amy's Birdhouse. Yo. What's up, players?
Future co-star in The Walking Dead, possibly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. I should talk about that for a second. Harry and my wife signed up to be extras on The Walking Dead.
No. Hopefully we hear back, but we'll see.
Yeah, right. So hopefully that'll be funny to see.
Oh, that'd be great.
We got Roland Ketzergi with us tonight. Let's go. ASAP Imaginations in the house tonight.
Hey, Hades, what's
all
up?
the way from across the pond. Wow.
Yeah, man, up late.
I'll hope you're cooler than an ice cream sandwich. I love it. Ara is in the chat tonight. Ara, good to see you, buddy.
Love you, kid.
Roland says it's always Dobermans. I don't know what that's a reference.
That's from the pond. The pond is two Dobermans.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay. Yeah. And I see you responding here, Joni. Those poor Dobies.
It could have been Magnum PI.
Watching the show as a test of my 11th on my 11th television. Whoa. Who holds 11 television? That's wild.
Actually, I might be with him on that. I can maybe
really
count 11 in the house. Yeah. There's a lot of TVs in this damn house.
That's awesome. Amy said Harry and I are eagerly awaiting our casting call, right, Harry?
Yep, can't wait.
I hate when people just blast through questions like that, so impersonal. That's what you were talking about, Harry.
Yeah, George Norrie.
DC Miller says Harry is a master storyteller.
Oh,
he sure is.
Star, what is this? Star Million Comics says, hi everyone, looking forward
Star
to
Million.
Star Million.
We just
thanks
followed
for
each other
joining
today.
us. What's that, Johnny?
We just followed each other today. Star Million.
Oh, awesome.
Thanks for the follow,
thanks
man.
For joining us. Appreciate you coming on the channel and checking it out. Maria Helene
Hey,
LeBron
Marie.
is with us. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Marie.
Ara says
Hello.
all mushrooms. I don't know what that's a reference to.
Fungi.
Oh, you're all fungi. I got
Yes.
it.
Oh, I just got that.
It could be it could
Marie
be a
said
reference.
next Monday is it's her birthday. Happy birthday,
birthday.
Marie.
Happy birthday.
And then also
birthday.
recently Nandor, happy birthday as well. Wasn't it this
Happy
weekend?
birthday, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
happy
thank you.
birthday.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Oh,
Yeah, I
happy
saw
belated.
it. Saw
Wait,
that
wait.
on
Can we
Facebook.
sing happy birthday right now?
Oh,
Like-
do you do it?
Oh no, you don't have to do that.
I will stay silent if you guys want to do
Yeah.
that.
All right. Happy birthday
Birthday
to
to
you.
you.
Oh, no.
Happy birthday to you. Happy
birthday,
birthday, dear
dear
Nandor. Happy birthday to you. All right, it was not in sync, but we did it.
Yeah, we
right.
got through it. All right.
Thank you so much.
Roland says they're all salvaged garbage. You'd be surprised how wasteful people here in Cambridge all can be. I don't know what that's from. Haiti says Star Million is good people.
Star
He
Million.
is.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are they flat screens or CRTs?
Oh,
and
TVs. That's what he's talking about. The TVs.
TV,
Salvage garbage TVs. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect, pitch perfect singing.
Imperfect.
Imperfect singing. And he said, Roland said the 2 are CRT, the rest are flat panels.
My monitor, which I use for my computer, is a television. That's why I'm best in this blue hue.
Oh, okay. You're gonna need those blue blocker glasses.
I know.
You know.
Listen,
But,
fool, it ain't no shocker. Got to get yourself some blue blockers.
Yeah.
That old school commercial.
I miss the 80s.
Right.
I do too.
Yeah. I was just like reminiscing with this guy. I wore this Larry Bird T-shirt.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's my favorite player. About because I remember watching playoff basketball, and then like that made me want to go. I went outside and for hours I played. And shot from my knees. 3-point shots. Just to get better at shooting three. Because I'm so vertically challenged. The only way that I could score or shoot was to shoot from far away. But. Anyway, I got a story that earlier comment storytelling. I do tell roundabout stories. And my ex-girlfriend got pretty upset with me because she liked hearing things right to the point. I would come home from work or whatever, and she would say, "How was work today?" And I'm like, "Well, so this guy that I was talking to earlier, that I was telling you about the other week." He came in, I was talking to him about this thing, and I was like, basically, I was laying out the background of all the things. Then I got to the story. I was like, "Harry, just tell me the story." And it reminded me. If you guys watched Lincoln, that movie?
Yeah.
Daniel J. Lewis.
It seems very long and boring, but at the very, very end, or during the movie, I forget what point in the movie he was telling the story. People were wondering, what the hell is he talking about? He kept talking about some weird meandering story. And then at the very end, he got to the point, whatever the story that was. And that's exactly how I tell stories. That's what I do. I like filling out the gaps. And she's like, "Harry, how about this? How about you just get to the point? Tell me the story, tell me what happened right away. And if I have any follow-up questions, I'll ask you." So I got to learn to get better with that.
Well, I think there's a balance between setup and tangent, right?
Right.
You can write yourself off onto so many side rails.
Yeah.
But there's a certain importance to story setup.
I always
think about punchlines to jokes, right? Like if you didn't have that setup, the
Exactly.
punchline would not land.
Grandpa Simpson style storytelling.
Sometimes I give a little background to not get a lot of questions asked. I just want to tell it and then be done with it.
Context.
But anyway,
context is everything. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So without further ado, let's get started on this.
Let's do it.
I figured what we would do is we'd have the guests, start with the answers, and I'll pick a new one to start every question. So I came up with 5 questions about writing, and I know Harry has a couple, and Johnny might have some on the way as well. And if you guys, Tony, Nandor, George, if you guys have one too, towards the end or whatever, we'll throw those out and, we'll just mix up everything. So I'm going to start with the first one here. And the question is, Can you describe your creative process when developing a new comic book concept? Where do you find fresh ideas for your comics? And I'm going to start with Tony on this one.
My process for developing a new story is very annoying. I am certain that there is a more efficient way for a writer to develop a story. So I go for a lot of walks. I listen to a lot of music on those walks, and I get inspired by certain songs. And I get caught up in the emotion of whatever the song is, and then these kind of single image moments start to kind of pop up when I'm listening to these songs. And I start writing them down in my phone. They're completely abstract. They're nonsensical. I have no, like with Star Noir, there was a song from 1918 that was like a breakup song, but then I had recontextualized it as like a murder song. And then all of these like horrific images started popping up that I thought were really cool. And then there was like a DMX song that I was listening to that also had conjured up a bunch of images. And then once I had like about 30 of the list of 30 of these like single image moments, then I tried to kind of find some correlation between them and start organizing them into like what would be kind of the roughest version of like 5 acts. And then I take that to a 60-page Word document where I then outline, I do like basically like a 5-act treatment of whatever the outline is. And then I start breaking down, like, you know, outlining character subplots, character arcs, like everything that has to do with characters' kind of wants and needs. There's 4 pages for Star Noir. There's 4 pages of just 1940 slang. And then after, you know, a few weeks of just doing that intensive work, then I actually get to write the first draft of one of these things. And then yeah, by the end of that, I have a draft of something, and it's basically 3-4 months of very intensive work.
Wow, I mean that's awesome, Tony. Because like I don't know if music ever played into anything that I, you know, like where my ideas come from. Like I don't think music was ever an inspiration. So that's interesting. Like how it. So when you hear music, does it like? Do you like see the whole story or just see parts of the story?
I see parts of the story. Yeah, I mean, just to use Star Noir as an example, since you guys know all of it. You know, the things that were in that list were just like, you know, a bunch of a press of photographers trying to, you know, get a snapshot of a dead body, and Alan says, "Cover him up, will ya?" You know, Alan in his backyard at night, touching frozen grass and looking up, and there's an alien floating towards him like a ghost. You know, he sees his captain talking to an alien. He runs in there. There's a human there, and I have no idea at that point when I'm making that list. I have no idea, you know, how that fits. I don't know which acts those goes into. So it really just is just kind of this abstract feeling of like, oh, this is the right tone for the story I want to write, and a bunch of images just sort of pop up as a result.
That's awesome. Harry, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, can I let me ask a filler question? Are you a fan of like old movies and old music? Is that how you're in this era of
yeah. I mean, like I said, there was that there's this song "After You've Gone." It's a breakup song from 1918, and it was part of this video game BioShock Infinite. It's where I first heard it. Yeah, I was just kind of going for a walk one day, and I was just listening to that song, and I was thinking about like, what if it wasn't a breakup song? What if this was about like murder? And "After You've Gone" is like, well, after I've killed you. And so all of the images for Star Noir started to like pop up as a result of that.
Oh wow, that's awesome. I'm going to turn the floor over to Nandor. Same question.
All right, yeah. So all of my ideas when I'm like approaching a new story, they all start with either I don't want to say like a message, but like what am I trying to say, or what do I want to talk about, or what do I want to say? What do I have to say? You know, whether it's in a particular genre, or if it is like something that I'm struggling with or wrestling with. I find those things to be the most impactful stories, you know, where I read stories that make me think about life and make me think about myself and other people. And so that's a huge motivator for me to get to my notebook. I write everything down in a notebook. I have a few journals just like completely full of ideas and scenes that I write down, or lines of dialogue. Lines of dialogue are a huge part of my creative process, where I have no idea where this line of dialogue is going to be in the story, but I know it's going to be in there, and it's like a gem that you're trying to find the place for, and you know it's like important. Like you want this to be a part of your story, and I love looking at stories that I enjoy and trying to see what it is about them that makes me love them, but also is there something about them that I can actually add to, or like emphasize. If there was a story that a movie or a song or a poem or a comic that I was like, there's something there that inspires me to want to go write my own story. And so art is a huge part of it. You're always absorbing everything as like a writer and a creator. Everything you see, everything that you smell and you experience in life, and you are taking in. It's just a huge part of that. And so everywhere I go, even when I go to work, my day job, I'm always bringing my notebook, just in case. I try to. I'm already on my phone too much, and so that's why I have a notebook, is because it keeps me from being distracted, and it helps me to keep everything in one place and to have like a hard copy of something. I'm a very like tangible person, and so that really helps me to keep focused and to like keep my head in the game and not be on my phone writing a note down and then getting a text or an email and then like losing my train of thought.
Right.
That really,
so easily.
Yeah, it really does. And it's one of the biggest challenges that, we face as creative people in this day and age, because it's so easily to be distracted now. And I'm always obsessed with just trying to create something out of nothing, and what that process is like. Like, I'm obsessed with the process of creation and trying to challenge myself in that way. So anytime, there's a kernel of a theme or an idea or a story that, could potentially grow into something larger, I sort of want to experiment. All my stories are experiments. It's kind of how I look at them. And I try to see, like, does this actually work? And a lot of the time you don't want to like force the story out, but you're like, like intuitively there's something there, and you're trying to wrestle with it, and you're trying to get it out of your system and figure it out. So it's like, it's a puzzle, and that's what makes it like really interesting. So
I just had a vision of Nandor in a lab mixing caustic chemicals to make a story. Just like,
One thing I was going to say, the one point that out of everything you talked about there, Nandor, that I thought was interesting was when I get an idea, like I never see the dialogue. Like I never get like a line of dialogue. Like, it's almost more just the idea that comes to me. Yeah. And then as I build the characters and everything, then the dialogue kind of, once I know who the characters are, that's when the dialogue starts to flow for me. So that's kind of interesting. So is it like you just see like that one cool movie line or something like that? Is that sort of what?
Yeah. Like when you like the there's something like something will change. I don't know necessarily like who is going to say this piece of dialogue or what, like, the context of where it is around, but there's an idea there that is being presented in that dialogue. And that's what I'm fascinated by, whether it's a character struggling or commenting on the world around them or something that they're facing. It's like, this is like this is what the world turns on. Like, this is what is going to kind of be the foundation for the character. And maybe, it could be the end of the story. You don't know where it's going to fall, but it's like, I want to figure out how to, grow that and like see what is around that idea. And writing for me is all about ideas, and it's all about not like the message, but it's like, it's about putting something out there that I find to be impactful and something I'm struggling with and trying to either inspire others or help others through it. And I'm also looking at, what makes comics specifically so special, And so when I'm reading a comic and I'm thinking about my own stories, I'm like, well, what is it about the medium? What is it about comic books that I can bring to the table? Because I'm not trying to, write a movie or a TV show or a song. All those can inform like comic book storytelling, but you're trying to take the pieces apart, put them back together, and make something that hopefully is unique to what comic books can do, because those are the best comic book stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right on.
That's great.
Well put.
How about you, George? Same question. What do you have?
Yeah, no, I love coming on shows like this where we're talking about writing, because it validates everything I do. It's almost like I am doing it right. Like when I hear guys like Tony's talking about building this world and taking 3 months to write before you even go into your script. I'm like, oh, thank God, I'm not wasting time. Like, because I tend to do that, right? Before I even write a word of script, I'm building this world, right? And that idea comes from like anything. It could be anything. And Nandor, much to what you were saying, I love this quote by a writer named Nathan Anglender. He writes short stories, he writes novels, but he says, write what you know isn't about events, it's about emotions. Right? Like writing what you know, it's about emotions, not what, people think, oh, write what you know, and it's just events, things that you've got, but it's about the emotions within those things that you went through that bring out the best stories, because that's where the heart of the story comes out. So when I think about my process and how I get inspired and what anything can do it, right? I can be walking down the street and whether it's God forbid an accident, or whether it's, when I wrote a story called The Shameless Plug, I literally was looking at my phone plug, and I was like, that's an interesting looking thing. What if that was the head of a character? And I tend to, write cartoony stories. Yeah. So that becomes the character. And I'm like, okay, let me build a story around that character. And it brings me back to whatever emotion. What do plugs do? They fit into sockets, right? So what if this is a story about a shameless plug, and the message, like, not to use the word message, but the emotion is, sometimes to fit in, you have to be yourself. And so let me write something around that. And then that's how that story came about. So it could change. It could be anything, to Tony's point, a song, a lyric, anything we see. So that's kind of like where my stories come from. That's where my inspiration comes from.
Awesome, man. Yeah, these are all great answers.
And I think
Johnny, go ahead, Nando.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, I think like in terms of creative process, I think deadlines are great. I think you should like give yourself like something to shoot for, but at the same time, you don't know how long it's going to take, and you can't, force yourself to, well, I'm just going to do this because it's the easy way, or it's easier for my creative process, or whatever. It's like, you really have to be honest with yourself. And if it takes 3 months, it takes 3 months. If it takes a year, it takes a year, but that's okay. Like, and, I definitely consider myself a slow writer. So yeah, when I hear, people are putting out, like 3, 4, 5, 6 books, within a year, money has, something to do with that too when it comes to comics, but even just storytelling, it's like, whoa, like if it's very discouraging to see that, because it's like, man, am I just like so slow and like I'm not good at this, and I won't be able to make a living at this because I am so slow? Or is it, just how you work? And maybe that's all it is. It's just how you work and how your mind, I process things. It takes me a long time to like go through the motions and process things. And when I talk with people, it's like I'm trying to pay attention to everything they're saying, and I have to think about it for a while before I can actually go, here's my response to that. But
I think good things really they take time. There was a quote I found in one of my writing books, and they mentioned that like every writer has their own process and they all hate them. Like they all hate their own process. So it really just, whatever is the process that works best for you. And, you can't be too critical of what that process is because, it's how you get to the end, the best result for yourself.
Yeah.
Harry, I saw you had your hand.
Yeah. Do you find that taking your time to write whatever is your story deters from, or not deters, but like prevents not the ending that you want or not the story that you want ultimately? You know what I mean? Like have you written a story and at the end of it, like maybe some time after, I'm like, I wish I had done that instead. Does it prevent like taking your time to write?
In other words, does it like put roadblocks up for you guys?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right.
Well, with me, with being such a big planner beforehand, I don't really run into roadblocks because I have just done such exhaustive pre-planning beforehand that I always have an answer for any time I get stuck or write myself into a corner. Yeah. So but if I write a story and I get to the end and there's a different type of ending I didn't anticipate, I think that's actually really exciting because I always really want to steer into what that thing was. I mean, like, again, going back to Star Noir, I mean, the ending of that, I didn't know the twist until I got to the very end. And there was a character who had like a throwaway line in the very beginning of the story. And I was like, oh, wow, that line has like a double meaning. And now we should kind of fit the story to fit around this character.
Yeah. That's cool. Like when you connect those puzzle pieces is like huge as a writer, Oh, go ahead, George.
No, I was gonna say, I think what when you talk about that, Harry, I think that may happen. I think maybe more so with like an ongoing series where you haven't had the chance to plan the whole thing out, where you're kind of like it's episodic and you're going episode by episode, where you're like, damn, by episode 50, like, dude, I could have tied that up, like issue number 25. Yeah, but it's too late. Like that's already been written, so I can't really change that. But me too. I'm a planner, so yeah, that's kind of stuff. I try to have something, going on for all of that stuff. And like I say this too. Your blueprint or your outline should just be a roadmap. Like it can change. You could take detours. You know what I mean? Like it's just something to get you to the ending, but how you get there may change as you go there. You know what I mean? So like, I'm a planner, but I don't stick to it. Like, oh, it's got to be this way or it's
right.
You know what I mean?
You don't have that rigid outline. I was gonna say, Johnny, do you have anything to add? Like, how do you see your ideas come to life, or is it very similar to one of these guys?
Very similar to everybody's. I think we've all heard a little bit from each person going, oh yeah, that's kind of, because George said it is best. It's like it validates what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
You hear, oh, Nandor does it this way. Okay, well, I kind of do the same thing or something similar. I feel like I'm on the right track. It's validation by our peers, right? Just hearing that we all kind of have the same process, but it's just everybody has their own different sandbox that they play in, how they play in it. So everybody kind of does it their own way. Like I've mentioned on George's show when I was on there, I've got my bubble method where I have an idea, I do a circle, draw a line, and then a connecting idea. And then I have, like, after connecting all these ideas, I have a roadmap. And from there, I can take it to story. And then on top of that, we talked about developing the story, sitting on it, finding the emotion in it. Is questioning, is this story worth telling? We all kind of have a different way of going about that, whether it's a feeling, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's putting it in a drawer, whether it's, like Nandor said, living with it long enough to work through it in your head to go, okay, this is what I'm trying to say, or this is the feeling I'm trying to invoke.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's a good point.
And that's where procrastination's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. When ideas come to me, they usually always start as like, I don't know, like an elevator pitch almost. Like I'll be like, what if this hits this, or what if this happened? And sometimes it's like I'll be watching a movie and a character will say something, and that'll spark an entire idea just off that one line or something, Or that's sometimes you're just driving and something hits you, because you get like. You get you're like in a meditative kind of state when you drive. You're not really, you're on almost autopilot,
Yeah.
And that's
very Zen-like.
Almost Zen.
It's very Zen-like. So it opens your mind to,
or, you're showering and
thoughts to wander. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So yeah, but it's weird. I usually just see a concept like or like a, like what if James Bond was an alien, or it's just this is one of the ones in my notebook. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but I have that idea as like a nugget to start. But like stuff like that, So
I was just saying, I've experienced what Tony has said about like listening to a music and then see a scene play out in your head. Like I've felt that before. Like I've listened to long car rides where you're listening to a song and all of a sudden like I'm playing through a scene in my head and going, oh, this would be great for this kind of story. And then next thing you know, I mean, you might not have the story for that, but then that just is a note that's in your back pocket that could go, okay, this could go here or there. And this could be in a space bar out somewhere in a far galaxy, or this could be out in the old West. You could just kind of place it where it works.
Yeah. I think with Mean too, I just figured it out because I just listen to horrible music, so maybe that's why I'm not getting any inspiration. Like Ab is like, not giving me anything, or the Bee Gees,
Radio. So a lot of Yoko Ono music.
Yeah, exactly. But I did have after this whole thing, something popped in my head too of an idea of like when you say you guys develop like an idea for a while. Do you guys have multiple ideas stored up? Like, because I know like comic writers like Ed Brubaker and like Jeff Lemire, they always have like an idea. Whenever you read like the back matter in their comics, they always talk about it. They've been sitting on this idea for 10 years and they finally found the right thing to write about. Do you guys have a lot of that too?
Yes, 100%. I have a drawer full of scripts, and then there are like just elevator pitch ideas for stories that I write down in my notebook, and I have a lot of those. And it's like, well, when I get the time, I'm going to take 3-4 months and make that a script. Yes, all the time.
Okay, yeah. You Nandor, George, that same with you guys?
Yeah, I definitely have a few ideas, and like some of them are more developed than others. You know what I mean? But which is the reason why I try to stay away from ongoing series. Like when writing comics, I like to write like 6 chapters, 7 chapters, maybe 8, 4, and just get those done. That's done. Boom, move on to the next story. Because but the way I write them is I leave them open ended. You'll still get the story, but it can continue if I want to later on. Oh, I have another idea for it. I can do another.
Yeah, you can do like another mini.
But yeah, definitely tons of just stuff laying around, ideas just all over the place. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I wouldn't say I have a lot. I have like a few, but what I try to do, I'm trying to save myself agitation and regret from not ever being able to develop them. So like when I have an idea, I try to pursue it as quick as possible. And I'm like, okay, I want to work on this because, and other ideas will come on, along the way, but I'll usually just like scribble something down of like, okay, I want to write something in this genre, or if I were to do something like that, what would that look like? But they're really more like kind of little footnotes, not something that I'm like, this is going to work and I need to do this. It's more like that's interesting. And so everything else, I kind of like the idea will speak to me so much that I can't help but pursue it and want to go for it. And so, thankfully, like I have ideas, and I most of that though is kind of like ideas for other properties or other characters, not necessarily original material, because the original material that I'm excited about and that I'm focused on is like what I'm working on at that moment. But
awesome. So before I go on to the next question, I just want to hit the chat. We got a few good things. What were you going to say, Harry?
Something that relates to what Nando was saying. So when you have an idea, do you feel that you have to maybe act on it right away? Because as an artist, if I think of like an idea for a drawing, I quickly do a quick little rough sketch and then put it somewhere, because somebody else might take the idea or beat me to it. You guys ever had that fear?
That's happened to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've had that fear. I also am afraid that I'll lose my motivation to write that story. You know,
Yeah.
if I'm like, okay, I'm gonna write that down and I'll get to it, you know, a few years later I'll look at it and I'll be like, I don't even know what I was thinking, you know, like what was that about? Like, you know, and maybe, you know, and that's, you know, I think like David Lynch, he said something really funny where like, and I wish I like trusted myself as much as he does, but he said something like, you know, I don't write all of my ideas down because the good ones will stay in there, will stick in there. And I believe there's some truth to that. Like there definitely is. But at the same time, I'm like, what if I don't remember why I was like wanting to pursue that, why I wanted to like write that story. But yeah, so I want to chase it. I want to like chase it right away.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
On the opposite, my brain is like a full hard drive. So if I want new stories, someone's gonna have to come out.
Yep.
That's great. Before we go on to the next question, let me whiz through the chat here real quick. ASAP agreed with Tony here. Yes, I have my writing music playlist all on emotions. That's great. Roland said almost like trying to retroscript a story from dreams. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what a writer does, right? I mean, we got Jolly Green joining us tonight. Thank you for joining us, Jolly Green.
One and only.
Yeah, right. We got Ben Soto with us. What's up, Ben?
Yeah. Hey, Ben.
Actually, I prefer geek. Actually, I think there's a difference. I think a nerd doesn't know that he or she is a nerd, you know. But a geek, I feel it has like a specific like towards something, you know, that they really are into like comics or this TV show, or they are aware of their geekness, how weird they are. Nerds don't think I don't think they understand that.
Donald Glover does a really good sketch about that, or a bit about that in a stand-up special. About defining a nerd and a geek, and one's actually self-actualizing, and the other one doesn't.
Yeah. Jeff Holman's in the chat tonight. What's up, Jeff?
What up? I saw him Friday night at the bar.
Yeah, he said awesome to see you this weekend, Johnny. Roland said he's been stuck on a script, 44-page book for over 5 years now. Writer's block is real, you know. Benjamin said the only change your plans when you fall into something better.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
that's okay. Let me see. Just he said just filling the little details from page to page that actually connect the overarching set pieces. And he said, Benjamin sort of stopped listening to Nickelback.
Get this photograph.
Amy said ABBA is very inspirational. And then we also have Ortoga with us. Geeks rip the heads off of live chicken.
I agree with that.
Right. That's right.
I agree with that.
And Burgerama said the best ideas I absolutely hate, but it keeps me up at night because I love it so much. Yeah, that's a great one. And Ryan Santos, wow, we got a full house tonight.
Santos in the house.
Great talk. Interesting and helpful. Music is a big part of setting the studio table. Absolutely.
I know for a fact Ryan has a story that it's in his back pocket waiting to tell. He pitched it to me a while ago, and I can't wait for him to finally get around to it.
Oh, absolutely. He's a busy guy. So hopefully we'll see that. Guy. And Ryan, you'll have to fill me in next time I see you at a con. Let's move on to our second question here. So here's the question. What do you create first, your characters or the plot line of the story? And can you talk about your technique? I'm going to go to George on this one first.
Yeah. So I think it depends on the story. Some stories start with a plot, right? Like I just have an idea, like that'd be interesting, like an idea, right? Like, oh, what would that look like? What would happen if I did that? And then other stories start with just the character, you know, like I've done both. Like my Rust story that's coming out, it started with a character, right? It just started with a doodle. I drew something on a page and I was like, what do I do with this guy? You know, and then the story comes after, the story came after that, you know, and then I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. You know, and then with Wonder Duck, it was a world, right? It was, I just wanted, you know, it was just an entire world, and I just wanted to fit something in there. What fits in here? Oh, this character fit in there. So it really depends on the story and the idea that comes into my head. I don't really have, I can't really tell you, oh, it's just one thing. It's just that every single time it's a character every single time, and this is how I develop it. It changes. It usually varies.
Okay, awesome. Let's go to Tony on this same question.
I start with the plot. I flesh that out first, even before characters have official names. And then when I develop the characters and give outlines for them, I then revise the plot and just to make sure that like these are the things that they would do based on their personality traits that I gave them.
Oh, okay, interesting. How about you, Nandor? Same question.
I'm gonna throw a little curveball. I try to my stories somewhat come about in tandem between the plot and character. I really can't differentiate them. There's usually an idea, and a lot of my stories they're all very character driven. And so I have an idea that I think is interesting, but it all falls into the lap of a character, and then what I want to put that character through, and that creates the plot. So that kind of it kind of works in that sequence where I really want the reader, I really want the person who is experiencing the story to feel what the character is feeling, and so to do that, the plot really comes from the character themselves and how the character relates to the world and what they're going to go through. They inform each other, I think is the best way to put it, where, I can't really separate them, because if I tried to force this character in the plot, it wouldn't really work. And if I tried to force the plot into the character, it wouldn't work either. So, it's kind of like a dance between the two. And that's kind of how I approach it.
Gotcha. Johnny, do you have anything to add, or do you see one over the other when you create?
Not particularly. I think it's all kind of again the same, where it's a little bit of the same across of everything what everybody has said. In particular, like George is like, sometimes it starts with a character, sometimes it starts with a scenario. As we were talking before, I literally opened up my writing folder to look at just all the notes I jotted down of like stories that I may or may not get to, and like looking at one of them, like I labeled it. It was the name of the the script would be Dalton, and in parentheses, Old Drunk Sad Spy. Okay, so you can only imagine what the notes in that folder is about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Actually, I opened it up. It's like, okay, I got it from listening to this podcast in reference to this episode of a TV show. This is it. This was the character in reference.
Do you write that stuff down in your folder?
Yeah, I can share my screen to show you if you want to see it. But it's like I make the detail, because if I ever have to go back and capture the same feeling of what I had heard to give me the idea, it's now there. I can pull up the podcast. I can pull up the episode. It's all
That's
there.
A great idea.
Where I can
like,
refer
I never
back
thought
to
do that.
Yeah, and then again, it's been something I've been sitting on forever. I don't even know if I'm ever gonna make it. But it's there, you know what I mean? So again, that was one that started with a character, Old Drunk Spy. Something gave me the inspiration for that, and that's kind of the seed that's sitting there waiting to be, tended to.
Yeah, no, I might start adopting that. That is such a great idea, because, like I said earlier, like sometimes I'll hear a line in a movie and it'll spark an entire idea, or something like that. But like with me too, I think I see the plot before I see characters most of the time. Like it comes from that one, like I said, I get the elevator pitch idea in my head, and then I start developing it further from there. Sometimes months and months and months, just figuring out what it's going to be and who the characters that revolve around it are, and what they, like Tony was saying, the outline for those characters and what their arcs are and things like that.
I also think it's kind of dependent upon what you're trying to say, though, too, right?
It does.
Because like, if I'm going to write a story about an old drunk spy, is it really about him versus himself and his age and his shitness versus what the actual mission and the task is? So what am I trying to tell there, right? So I guess that's kind of definitively how am I gonna approach that?
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Harry, did you have anything to add to that question?
I was going to say maybe the old drunk spy could be the later version of Tony's character from as an older detective.
Noir.
Yeah,
Hey,
you never know. You could
never know.
combine the idea.
Well, it is a noir, and
Yeah,
dressing
you never
goes
know.
hand in hand with it. So.
Or it's James Bond because he's an alien and that's why he's sad and drunk.
Wait. Isn't noir like a champagne noir? Is there like a noir in there? Is that what you just said?
Like a Pinot Noir?
Yeah, Pinot Noir. That's the connection, you know.
Yeah.
The drunken. It's a Pinot Noir.
He was an old spy that retired and became a sommelier.
Yeah, exactly. There it is. That's the show, Jerry.
That's it. Harry, thanks for cracking it for me.
Johnny, pull the notebook up and put that in there.
Okay, Indie Comics Relay, March 11th.
Right.
There was a couple more comments here. Roland said, either I start with an idea or design and try to repurpose other concepts to work with it. And Ben Soto said, that's a great idea, Johnny. So there you go.
Appreciate it. I need to find a good artist.
It's
If anyone in the chat has a question for the roundtable, definitely put it in the chat and we'll work it into the show.
Yes.
It's almost like a captain's log almost.
Yeah,
Start
captain's
dates.
log. There you go.
You can mark the time and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, that's number 2. We're going to move on to number 3 now. This question is, what challenges as a writer or project manager, because usually the writer is the project manager of a comic, in terms of funding, distribution, and finding readers for your book? What are the challenges for that? So I'm going to start with Nandor on this one.
Everything.
All of the above.
I mean, it's just like you really in the indie comic scene, when you're trying to make a comic. I mean, I would love to say that the hardest part about making your comic is making it, but that's really the easiest part, and should be the most enjoyable part about the process, because the hard part comes after you have been working with an artist and you're ready to share it with the world, and you're trying to get eyes on it, and you're trying to have people get excited about it and hype it up, and you really have to believe in yourself, and the work never stops. It feels like it never stops, and so I think as the writer and as the person who is really championing your book, you really do have to believe in it, and you have to love it, and not in a way where you're like, oh, it's the greatest thing that's ever, been created, in the face of the earth, and it makes, all these other books look bad. It's more so just like, I really love what I'm doing, and I think other people will love it too, and I want to share it with the world, and you hope that people will see that and see that you're passionate about it, because a lot of the time, us writer types, we are very much, introverts, and we that's why we're writers. It's like we have all of these things to say, but we'd rather put it in a presentable package and give it to you and run away, and not talk about it. It's like we want you to wrestle with it because we've wrestled with it, and then we'll go from there. And so trying to, I love, watching special features, for movies, and learning about behind the curtain, and seeing what how the pudding is made, and like the process of it all. And I remember, watching those things and watching writers talk about their stories, during interviews, for whatever it could be. And I always thought, I want to be that guy. Like, I want to be the guy that made the thing that no one really knows about, but they love their work, And so trying to be the person that's always out there and talking about your stories is really difficult. And so, like, for me, to answer some of the challenges, it's like, you have to, the good thing is when you're creating your product and you're working with an artist and you see your art, that is such a great way to share your work, is because you're excited about the art. Like, I love my comic, not just because the story, and I think the story is good, but I love it because I'm working with this amazing artist. And that's where you can kind of crack that code and be like, you're kind of your own biggest fan in a way, because you're looking at that and someone else is working with you, and you have a team And a lot of the time, the artists that you're working with, they may not have a big following either, and so you have to like kind of carry that weight as well if they're not promoting things. Maybe they're really busy, maybe they're working on multiple projects at the same time. But that's always been sort of an adrenaline rush for me, is when I get art back from the person I'm working with, and I can be like, I want to share this with the world, so that you're not only talking about yourself and how great your story is or whatever, you're talking about how amazing this art is and how excited you are to work with this person and how excited you are for this person to get work, and to share their work out. And that has always been a really great, like, helpful way for me to be like, because I don't like talking about myself. So it's like, I want to talk about other people. I want to talk about how great this artist is, and I want to share this work out. And so, getting on shows and talking about the art and talking about your story and sharing out art that, is a part of your book, and, meeting people at the comic book store and talking about stories and things like that. All of that has, really helped me kind of get out of my shell and be like, okay, no one else is going to do this. Like it's up to you. It really falls, up to you. You have to make it happen. It's like, you have to make it happen. And just like the story, you had to, put in the time and the work to sit down and put in all of that work into the story. Once it's done, you have to do the same thing with promotion and with getting it out there and sharing it with the world. So yeah, you have to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It all comes from the writer. I find, like, artists do help, but like the writer is driving everything.
Yes.
Tony, same question. What challenges have you faced?
When I first read this question, my answer was the internet. That's my biggest challenge is the internet. I mean, yeah, because the internet is just full of noise.
It is. And trying to stand out is the hardest thing in the world, especially if you're selling something that no one wants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
and you just sort of feel like, you feel like Logan Paul will give you a really bad comic first before your comic gets to be in front of somebody.
Yeah.
So that is really disheartening. Especially when you like work so hard and you spend so much time trying to make something that stands out, packs a punch, and is like very immediately identifiable, something really good. So, just trying to push against my introverted nature. And just constantly trying to basically fake it and constantly get out there and tell anybody who will give me 5 seconds on a microphone about the book. Always just trying to get out there. And then once all that promotion is done, I mean, it affects me so mentally that like I have to take like, long multiple hour like meditation sessions just like decompress from all of it, because it's just too much for me. Like I can't focus. Everything is just like going a mile a minute because I'm just constantly trying to promote, and I'm using social media way more than I ever would. After all that, it's just like I just have to decompress. So trying to push through the noise of the internet, it's exhausting. It's something I try to do.
I will find myself like after I'm done, with the campaign and doing all that promotion, I'll find myself like sitting on my couch or right before I go to bed, and I'll pick up my phone, and I don't even know why I'm picking it up. I'm just so used to promoting. You're so used to like, oh, I need to like make this post, or I need to like share it out. And once it's all done, like it's such a weird feeling. You're like, wait a second, I don't have to like say anything about my book anymore. It's crazy.
The best day of running a campaign is the day after it's over.
The day after.
Yeah. My favorite day.
For me, it's like, I can't send it now. This is the worst time to send it. Like, it's like 11 at night or something. Like, no one's gonna see it, So you try to wait for that perfect time the next day to send it, and then you miss that. And it's like, damn it, That's what I run into. How about you, George?
I think, writing for comics and being a comic book, when we're talking about comic book writing, I think one of the biggest challenges is you're at the mercy of somebody else. And in that case, being the artist, right?
Yeah.
We can't just sit down and write our prose book, get an editor, put it out there. We're waiting on art from somebody else to finish this book because it is a comic book.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a challenge, because just like we're going through our stuff, right? You don't know what that artist may be going through. Are they going to hit the deadline, and why are they not going to hit the deadline? Am I going to get this page today that I want, that I need to finish the book, or how long is it going to take? So I think that's a challenge as a comic book writer. I think, and obviously all the other things that come with it. But I think another one is, setting that thing aside of I'm writing for me, and will this book sell? Right? Because we want to write for us, right? We always say I'm writing for me, but at the end of the day, as soon as you're done writing that book, if you want to keep it for you, if it's just a vanity thing and you just want to do it for yourself, fine, then write for yourself. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But if you're trying to sell this thing, then you got to think about, okay, what is the target audience? Who would enjoy this book? How do I market it? Who's going to pick it up? Is this art enough? So it's not necessarily just for you now. It's become for the masses as well, right? Because the end game, at least for me, is to be able to do this and make a living out of it, so that I don't have to do the thing that I don't like to do from 9 to 5. So I can do the thing that I love to do. But in order to do that, I have to write things that people are going to want to buy. And so I have to be able to differentiate. I'm writing for me and being that guy and saying, shit, okay, wait, I got to figure out how I'm going to market this thing. And that's where the posts come in, and that's where the crowdfunding comes in, and who's going to read my book, and the doubt, all that stuff starts creeping in. So that's the challenge, right? Being able to kind of maneuver and kind of like just navigate that space, which gets really, just tight sometimes. Right. So yeah, I think those are the challenges for me.
Yeah, definitely. Johnny, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about it, right, my personal motto is every story should be written for you. You wouldn't want to write something that you wouldn't want to read yourself, right? So I always write to myself. If somebody doesn't like a story that I wrote, that's their problem. I wrote it for me. Now, in terms of selling it, that's the thing, right? If you've got only one book, then it's going to be real hard to sell just this one book, because it might not be everybody's tastes. So that's where you as a creator need to differentiate your creative portfolio to have spaghetti western, horror story, comedy, action. You know what I mean? You need something for anybody. So when they come to your table, you have that conversation with the individual. Or if somebody comes to your online store, they're like, okay, well, what suits your tastes? There's a little bit of everything here for anybody. So to be able to, do a horror story or do a romance or to do whatever, to have a very diversified output of work, not only sharpens you as a creator, but also allows you to be able to sell better too in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. And I think for me, a challenge too is even after a campaign's done, is still doing social media after that, like getting out there, putting tweets out, putting stuff on Facebook and Instagram once in a while, just kind of like thinking about that as something you got to build in the background as you're creating comics. Try not to let it dominate your whole life, but like, because I personally hate social media. If I didn't have a comic book, I wouldn't be on it at all.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right out the door.
I think we all feel that way at this point. I think we're all just sick and tired of fucking social media. But it's all kind of a necessity, right? And that all makes it kind of meandering and mindless at times. So that's why it's important that in the process of having to be beholden to this platform, to still make it personable, to still make it sociable, to still be civil, to still fucking treat people with respect. What I mean?
Also fighting shitty algorithms. Like whenever you promote
Skynet out there.
Yeah. Like stuff like that. And then just the people's attitude towards links and stuff. It's always trying to find that creative way to like break through all of that crap, and still get it out to people. But also that's why cons are good too. Like cons, you see people face to face, which, I'm a little better at than I am online. I like, not going to lie. I like talking to people and getting them excited about books and, and usually, like when I could talk to somebody, I could sell a book usually, and it's just easier as long as they're, willing to read comics. I think you can make a sale there,
because you can connect with them one-on-one.
Absolutely.
And you're putting a book in their hand. You're having a shared personal experience versus text that's flashing in front of you on a screen. That's just
but going by like at a, you're just
Right.
scrolling through, you're
right
not gonna
at a very
stop, that kind of
impersonal, personable rate.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else? You got anything to add? Harry, you wanted?
Oh yeah. So somebody mentioned being introverted, and that might be kind of hard. If you are kind of introverted, it might be kind of hard to promote your stuff, But there is no better promoter than yourself, because nobody is more passionate about your work than you are. You know what I mean? Nobody can do it justice. Like
Exactly.
Nobody could pitch the story like you can, because you wrote it. You know it inside and out.
Right.
I mean, you can kind of so when I share a table with Keith, or I've shared a table with George, it's like I kind of have an idea and flavor to be able to pitch their book, but they can't sell it the way that they can personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple of comments here. Ben Soto says, I suck at the marketing aspect. But we struggle with that. Everyone struggles with that. Writers, artists, I don't know anyone that's doing a great job at it. It's like, it's one of those things, Tortuga says, we need more romance. I'm assuming romance comics. I don't know if I don't know if I have that story in me, but maybe you guys do.
I have one somewhere in here. I'll figure it out, but I got one. It might end in death, and might be it might end up becoming a horror story, but there's a romance will be involved.
Maybe not Uncle Ben. Who am I thinking of? Who's that guy? And not Uncle Ben. Who am I thinking of? Maybe Mrs. Butterworth. No. Mrs. Butterworth and somebody else can get together and
and Mighty Mascots.
Yeah, or something, something like that. Make them sweet love. Literally.
There you go. Amy says Facebook actively suppresses posts that contain links or even mention links or fundraisers. That's true. That's the stuff I was talking about. The algorithm will just screw you over every time.
What about TikTok? Is that something you guys are into? TikTok?
I don't have TikTok. Yeah,
I'm at my maximum with social media platforms right now. I can't not add another one.
I'm only mentioning it because I keep hearing TikTok from everyone. Lately TikTok is like the thing or something. I don't know why.
Well, I actually found a lot of success promoting Star Noir on TikTok.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just basically taking a couple of panels, setting it to old timey music. And it's just 10 seconds, very quick, and people really engage with it. It's actually on my crowdfunding analytics. The search feature is so high because links are really bad on TikTok. So people are saving the video and then they come back later, and then all of a sudden 8 o'clock at night 4 people are backing a book.
Oh, really?
Cool.
Yeah, maybe I've discounted that one.
I've seen a lot more comic creators kind of migrate to TikTok because to be fair and be honest, that's where a lot of people are now. I mean, a lot of people are just on TikTok, and also they just kind of implemented the TikTok shop. So a lot of comic creators, you can actually put your comics on the TikTok store, and people can click on you and find you, and then see your books on there. And so I've seen a lot of people have success there too. But I just started my TikTok last year, and I've been messing around with it, but I have met a lot of other indie creators there that I've never seen on Facebook or Twitter, and so it's opened connections that have been really helpful for me.
Awesome. Ben says social media is the required sacrifice to stay relevant or seen, because you don't want to be the guy that only comes around to sell something then disappears. That's true.
I am 100%. I am 100% that guy. Though.
Is everyone guilty here?
Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
I try to mix in my promo stuff with other things that are cartoons or old toys.
That's why
and stuff like that,
I think it's important. I mean, you can look at comics depending on how many projects you have. I find having multiple projects kind of brewing at the same time can really help with mitigating that feeling and trying to only pop up when you're trying to sell a book, because you'll be on there more constantly trying to share designs or concept art or things you're working on, works in progress, things like that. And so it's a bit more helpful, because if you only have the one book, it's hard to like constantly talk about the same thing over and over and over. It's more difficult. So when you have kind of a more horizontal playing field with like other things you're working on, it helps to, keep people from feeling like you're just popping in when you need money or whatever. So
that's true, Nandor. Because like I mix, like when I do my promo posts, and now this is off season when I'm not doing a crowdfunding, but like I'll share links to the YouTube videos we make, our live streams, the bits I make from like episodes. I'll share that, but then I'll also talk about lettering that I do, and then I'll share a panel from one of my comics, and if I run out of that stuff, I promote whatever guests I have come in.
Other people's stuff.
Yeah. Or like today I shared Julius has a Kickstarter or Indiegogo. I shared that link today too. So like, things like that. I try to vary it up so I'm not just constantly giving the audience like the same stuff,
Exactly.
Then I mix it in with, 80s cartoons and toys and whatever stupid memes and stuff like that. But
you really are like your brand, and what you talk about, what you love, what all of that stuff. It really comes across, to where people are gonna remember you for that and be like, oh, you talk about these things, and I think it, we probably love a lot of the same things and we enjoy a lot of the same things, and so to talk about those things online, that's a plus, and that can be really beneficial for you.
Absolutely. Let me scroll through these last few
Harry,
comments and we'll move
what
on
do you got to say?
I just want to mention that every comment tonight's been very well written.
Yeah, really.
You don't want to be judged.
Roland says Keith's charm is what won me over during that one Haverhill.
How can it not, though?
Look at that.
Yeah, I know. Well, me and Johnny will be there again this year. So, Roland, if you're around, pop in. Love to catch up with you. Travis said,
"Hey, Travis,
that for TikTok."
Travis.
I am positive that I am not the target audience there. Amy Spurthouse said Plastic City Comic Con is on TikTok, but someone wasn't updated enough. I'm pointing at myself. But we all get busy, I mean, that happens, But yeah, all right. So let's move on to question number 4. This question is, how do you approach character development in your comics, and what techniques do you use to make your characters feel authentic and relatable? So I'm going to start with Tony on this one.
Okay. So I do pretty extensive outlines on my characters. They all have kind of bulleted outlines of the classic things that you need: a want, a need. They have 3 flaws. They've got a secret. I usually I give them a voice just to kind of, it's really sort of a placeholder thing. I'll usually choose like a movie star or something like that, just somebody whose films or TV shows I've seen a lot of, that I can kind of like keep it in my head, and that just is to help me make sure that the characters don't sound the same when I'm writing them, and to give them some life. I do these kind of like unofficial like story arcs for them. They're not they don't have full scenes. It's not a full subplot total outline. It's just more background sort of a background arc, so that when the reader is you see like the bartender in Star Noir, you feel like they're not a position player, that they have something going on. And then as far as the main characters go, I always kind of give them, non-direct plot related things going on with their life. Like, somebody's broken up with them, they've lost a job, like that's just an aspect of their life. So you kind of feel like there's a lot going on with them.
Awesome. How about you, George? We'll go with you second on this one.
I also sit down and just write down, give them a bio, basically who they were, where they came from, and all this stuff. I like to go into things like, sometimes depending on the character, like if it's a main character, for example, first 10 years of their lives, what was it like? What were they like when they were kids? What were they, you give them that, so that if I'm ever writing a scene or I have to, and I'm stuck with, whether it's dialogue or something like that, I can go into the stories that I've written for them when they were 10 years, something that happened to them when they were young, and it becomes part of the dialogue or something like that. Something that explains why they are the way they are, who they are, and things like that. So I'll do that. And yeah, a lot of it is just bios of who they were, what they were doing, and just breaking it down that way. Also, I tend to use maybe just friends that I knew or something like that. A friend with a really interesting personality. You know what I mean? I'll inject that into the character to make them look good, to make them a little different or whatever. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
Awesome. How about you, Nandor?
Yes, so I really ask myself all the same questions, a lot of questions. I'm always asking myself, okay, what brought this character here? Why are they here? What have they gone through to get to this point? What is their motivation? Like when an actor's like, "What's my motivation?" or whatever. It's like, why is it important that they have a line of dialogue here? Why is it important that they're in this scene? I think it's important to because a lot of my stories are very character driven, and you have the main character, a lot of the world around them and the characters around them, they all sort of bounce off of the main character. It's like what makes them different. What's the contrast that I can give this character that the main character doesn't have? What is something that they could be good at that the main character isn't good at? And so that's kind of my anchor, and then everything else about the world and the characters kind of stems from that. It's kind of a good goalpost or guiding point foundation for me to make everything else feel different, and so that the characters aren't sounding the same, and they're not always kind of just echo chambers of one another. Thankfully, like a story like Man-Child, where a lot of the characters are geeks, they're huge comic book fans. I've been able to really kind of bask in all of my knowledge of comic fandom and all the people that I've met over the years, and really integrate a lot of those same conversations and those grievances and problems that we have with comic book culture, or things we love about comic book culture, and inject that into the characters themselves. And so that's been really helpful in being because there's some people in their little cliques in fandom. It's like people who just love manga, people that just love old superhero comics, people that just love movies, people that have only seen the MCU movies and they have no idea that Captain America has had a comic for 80 years. It's like there's all these different versions and kind of interpretations of what it means to be a fan. And so that in particular with that story has been really helpful, just because I'm so close to it. But with other characters and other stories that I've worked on, it really what a character is going through, I put a lot of characters through a lot of torture, a lot of pain, a lot of struggle, and that's where you find who they are. And it's all about reacting, how does the character react to this situation? And that really breeds if I put this character through this situation in the plot, how would they react? That brings up a question for me to go, why would they react that way? And then that can create sort of a backstory or an idea for something that would help them, resolve that problem. And so, there are some things about my characters I won't know until I'm writing them, because the plot brings it up, or there's something that I'm this scene needs to be juicy, or there needs to be something here that I'm missing. And so you'll go back and you'll be okay, this needs to happen here. They need to respond to this a certain way. But I think when it comes to characters, it's really about, the basic things of their role in the world. Do they have a job, their parents, their family, the, siblings, all that kind of stuff. What makes you who you are? You can look at your own life and be why do I live here? Is it because my parents grew up here? All that kind of stuff. It helps inform the character and what they're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Johnny, do you have anything to add to that? I mean, I think these guys nailed it.
These guys nailed it. They kind of really, they summed everything up. I was just gonna say, I mean, there's some moments where if you know your character well enough, they just kind of speak for themselves. So they kind of take the wheel and you type, and you'll know whatever scenario to put them in. I was just gonna say one little thing I sometimes do when I find myself stuck, like what would a character say or what would a character do, is just to put them in different scenarios that are completely irrelevant to the comic. What would they be like at this point? What would they be like at a supermarket trying to pick milk and somebody's standing in their way? Just dumb stuff that we're thinking through those things would help then in turn maybe sometimes get me over a hump or help me kind of figure things out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. One thing I wanted to add to that, do you guys have a hard time, like, especially in comics, it's tougher, I think, than like a novel and stuff, but coming up with a character's voice, like, so that, you say you have a handful of characters and they're not all sounding the same. Like it's the same person. It could be the dialogue could be any of them. How do you kind of make them stand out a little bit, I guess? Like, do you use like voice quirks or things like that, or?
Well, I mean, when I use like specific actors, I really kind of tap into the personality of those characters. So a cynic will always sound like a cynic, an optimist will always sound like an optimist.
Yeah.
And you can add specific phrases that they might use that might come up. That also helps. Certain cadence, the way they speak. But yeah, for me, it really is just trying to use like a actor and trying to kind of like use that as a jumping off point.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Never thought to do that, but that's a really good one. Nandor, George, anything to add?
No, I same as Tone, like just like a catchphrase or something that they'll say from time to time to make them that character. That's what that character would say. You know what I mean? Like, because we know people like that, right? We know there are certain things that people just say all the time, like
or your friends, like you said earlier, like sometimes your friends have weird sayings,
Right,
I mean, think back to like TV show characters that are timeless. Ones that when you think of them, like you always know what Urkel's gonna say or do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it makes sense. Like you always can kind of expect a certain type of thing out of a character.
Absolutely.
Once you kind of nail that of your character, you're good. You know what I mean?
It's like Joey and Friends. He's always gonna say, "How you doing?" You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
right. Exactly.
It's just little stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Because he wants to be an actor. Any situation where the opportunity would present itself, he would jump at that. You know what I mean? It's like that would be his foil. Life would stop when there's an acting opportunity, right? And that enforces the character. That helps give them the voice. So on.
Great stuff. So one comment that came in, and then we'll move on to the final question.
Somebody's going to chime in?
No. I was just like moving my hand.
Okay. Benjamin Soto said, learning about 4-point opposition helped me to define the roles of my secondary characters and give them a unique role to play that sets them apart from the main characters. I've never run into the 4-point opposition. Do you guys know what that is?
Yeah, so you put them in 4 different, like, so you draw this grid and you put them at each side of the grid, and each character is opposing each character, and that's how it affects the story.
Oh, interesting.
So this character wants what this character wants, this character wants what this character wants, and they're constantly in opposition. So now you're creating these almost like drama within your story because they all want what the other wants.
Set up how they'll react to this different character, and then vice versa. Oh, interesting. Amy said,
a little bit like my bubble approach.
Yeah,
Harry,
have
you
you
use?
Yeah, it's a silly comment.
Go for it.
Let me go through these first, Harry.
All right. Yeah.
Do any of you write using I dialect, a non-standard spelling, like if a character says "filla" instead of "fellow"? Like, I mean, I think that helps. Like especially like with Honey Flakes, he talks like a pirate, so I'm constantly adding "yar" and things like that. And then let you know he's a pirate. That kind of thing.
I try to weave in as much like Old West slang that I picked up from my episodes of Gunsmoke in Sartana. You know what I mean? So
Oh,
it's like,
nice.
nice. People will say like the fun, like from cow to poke, these dialects, these phrases, things that are just lost to time that you kind of have to dig up and find the context, find the right way to use them.
Yeah,
and
but that also helps the voice. That forms
Yeah.
the character's voice too. Tony, what were you gonna say?
No, it's like every genre that I write in, there's always several pages of just catchphrases that are relevant. Cool. Like a Western that has all these phrases. Like I said, like for Star Noir, it's just like 3 pages of just 1940 slang, and then you just figure out where it would fit in a character's dialogue.
That's great research, man. Like doing that shit. That's
yeah.
It makes it so much easier though when you're writing dialogue, because you can dig right into that page and say, oh shit, okay, I can use this.
Right, and kind of meld it into the character. Yeah, that's great stuff.
And I think just real quick, like I think it's important to remember, it's like with these characters, what do comics have to offer that we can use? What's like intrinsic about comic books that we can use to like convey character. And I think a lot of that can be how the character themselves how their gestures, how they walk, how your artist is creating their stride, or do they lean a lot, do they slouch, are they kind of a big man with their shoulders up. If you look at one of the best stories, comic book stories, All-Star Superman, and one of the reasons why that story, is so great, there's so many reasons, but something I love about it is you have Superman who he's Superman, like we know what he would do, how he would stand, all that kind of stuff. And but when you look at the way Frank quietly draws Clark Kent in that story, he's always slouching, he's always like he looks like he can't be Superman. Like it's not just the glasses, it's not just the glasses that's hiding his face or his haircut. It's how he's moving, how he's talking, and all of that kind of stuff. And I think to keep going with that is like also we have something that comics have that is really unique, and something that Ed Brubaker does a lot in his stories is the inner dialogue or the inner monologue that the character has, and giving that character a voice that way. If you don't feel like you have room in your story where your character wouldn't talk a lot, maybe they're a thinker, they're if they're a detective, or if they're an analyst or whatever. It's like if they're a very analytical person and they don't use their voice, it's like what's going on up in here, and that's where you can really get the character and present the character in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Use the medium, right? Use the medium.
Yes.
Use the medium in comics. Like that. That's
what makes a great creative team too. If the artist can deliver that visual thing about the character, whether it's like you said with Clark Kent slumping or slouching,
tripping over things, it's like if you look back on All-Star Superman, just like look at the pages where Clark Kent is present and see how he's presenting himself. It's really interesting because it makes you feel like that's a different person, like that can't be Superman.
That's awesome.
That's what made Christopher Reeve the best Superman.
Dude, exactly. I knew you were thinking that, Johnny. I was like, yo, as soon as he said the slouching and shit, like, because there's that one scene where he has to come out to Lois Lane, and simply just standing up straight and taking off the glasses in that scene, you're like, holy shit, he just transformed with no makeup, no anything, no CGI. He literally he went from Clark Kent to becoming Superman in front of our eyes, and it was like, that's what made him, like you said, Johnny, to me, the best Superman.
Then became a third version of that when he became like the evil Superman, and like Superman 3, I think.
Yes, that's right.
He's like in the diner,
I've been working on.
Loving shots, flicking the peanuts.
The other thing I was going to say, like kind of like along the same lines as superheroes, like so growing up, we all watch cartoons, but like cartoons like the Super Friends and like Thundercats and everything, even though they're the Thundercats and even though they're the Super Friends, each one of the Super Friends or Thundercats has their own strength and weakness. You know what I mean? So
yeah, personality.
Well, not only personality, but like what their abilities. You know, like Lionel was like brave. You know, but yet he was like youthful. He like a little like a kid's mind or whatever. Tigra, was brave or whatever. Panthera was like the builder. Like everyone
was like
had
the
their
elder. He was like the elder, the one that everyone takes care of everyone.
Yeah, everyone had their specialty, So if clearly not one of them could do it alone, but together that they were like, each one of them filled the hole that was missing,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I always love the collaboration about the heroes working.
When a writer can pull off all those aspects of a character is 100%.
Like only Green Lantern can fight Sinestro, because they're like opposites, or like Superman and like Bizarro Superman, whatever. Like they all had their arch enemies, and I love that when the Legion of Doom fought the Super Friends, like because each one had their counterpart. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah, like they're opposite. Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah.
One quick comment: Sebastian Bonet stops by. Just dropping by. Say what's up, guys? What's up, Sebastian? Awesome. So moving on to my last question here, which would be interesting, is how do you stay motivated and overcome creative blocks when working on a long-term project, such as a large graphic novel, like 100 pages or more, or multiple issues of a series, or even a mini series or monthly book? How do you guys stay motivated and overcome any kind of creative block with that? Let's start with Nandor on that one.
So I really have to look at the bigger picture. I really have to think, okay, if I'm going to pursue, this big of a story, it's not going to happen overnight. It might take all year, and you sort of have to like mentally prepare yourself, for what that might entail. And, you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to be able to get this done, in this amount of time and it'll all be fine and dandy, because your story is going to suffer for it, And so looking at the bigger picture, looking at like, okay, I'm going to write this, maybe in the next few months or this year. It probably, once the art is done, it probably won't come out till next year or maybe the year after. And so you really have to think about the long game, when it comes to staying motivated and realizing that these things don't happen overnight, and you can't rush your artist, you can't rush your creativity, because it will suffer for it. And, you'll agitate other people and you won't be much fun to work with if you're like, hey, I need to get this done, it's not on your own timetable. It's you, when you're collaborating, it might be different for a writer artist, who is doing it all. That's definitely a different story in my case, because when you're working with an artist, it's like you really have to be able to be patient, and your writing, really isn't done until you get the lettering back, and it's like you're never done. You're never done until the book is in your hands, really, or off to the printer, and you're like, okay, now I can kind of set this aside. And maybe that took 2 or 3 years. Like I wrote the Fabled Offering in 2022, or like summer of 2022, and it's just going to be coming out this year. And it's like, it's crazy, it's like, but it's also very rewarding. You're like, wow, I did that. Like I actually stuck with it, and I stuck to my guns, and I actually made this happen. And this is going to be something that, is worth it. I mean, there's not a better feeling than when you get the book in your hands. Like that makes every ounce of, blood, sweat, and tears that you poured into this thing worth it, because you're like, I stuck with it. And once you get your first book out and you get that feeling and you're like, okay, I've made it, I can do this. It gets easier. You get more confident in yourself, and you're able to, motivate yourself to continue. And so, I think you do have to also let things fly. It's like you wrote your story, or you are working on this big epic. Seasons is going to be 4. It's like over 400 or 500 pages. I have the first 2 volumes out, but I'm still working on fall and winter, and like that's been a lifelong work for me in a lot of ways, because I started working on it when I was about 19 or 20 years old, and I just turned 27. And so it's like when will this ever get done? And it feels like forever. So I just have to remind myself that it's going to take a long time, and that you have to remember why you're here, why you're doing this. What is it that brought you to this point? Don't give up. You really have to remind yourself, like, I can do this. Don't give up. I've done it before. If you have a book, if you don't have a book out, look at other people and see, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. Like, of course you can do it. I mean, making comics is really difficult. It is really hard, but it's not at the same time. Once you're able to kind of get over that hump and figure out what, is your strengths and what you need to work on, from then on, it can get easier and it can be a lot more fulfilling. So you just, like I said, you have to look at the bigger picture. You have to look at, okay, I want to table at that convention. You want to have a goal, I want to do a book signing here. I want to, and so you're like, I'm going to stick to that. And then when you finally get there, it's just, there's no better feeling. So that's what I'd encourage everyone to think about.
Yeah. Great. Well said. George, same question.
I think what keeps me motivated when I'm stuck on something else is having another project that I'm kind of developing, right? Because if I'm stuck on this one, I can always jump on that one and work on that a little bit. The other thing I like to do is, read, somebody else's book, go and check out Star Noir, Nandor, your Man-Child, you know what I mean? Johnny, The Pond, Mighty, Mascots. Like, read something else. If these guys are doing it, I can get this done. You know what I mean? This year I'm trying to hit up at least one convention, not the table necessarily, but just walk the floor, because just that energy, just that creative energy on that floor makes me want to go home and do something. Like,
that's a great point.
Walking up to somebody's table and hearing the pitch and looking at their book.
Yeah.
It just fills you with that, I got to get mine out. I got to do mine. So I use that as motivation. These shows, like, there's so many things, we hate social media, but on social media, you go into somebody's page and you scroll through some of their images, artwork, links. Let me go take a look at that. There's so much creative stuff out there that, when I'm stuck and I don't know, writing wise, I can always do that, do all those things. So it's kind of people asking, do you ever get bored? I'm like, no, because I'm constantly either thinking about something that I want to create, or I'm watching somebody else create, or I'm doing, you know what I mean? Like, there's no time for it. So that I try to do that, and that helps.
That's a great point, because I always feel more creative after a convention. Absolutely.
Especially when I'm not tabling. Like, when I'm tabling at a convention, it's exhausting. But if I'm just walking around that thing, bro, like, I love
just buying books and
absolutely.
That's my specific goal. Sorry, didn't interrupt. I'm gonna say, George, that's my specific goal now for C2E2, because I didn't get the table, so now I'm just going to go.
Yeah,
and I'm just gonna kind of drink it in, like, okay, it's nice to not have to, be worried about making a table number and just running around looking at other people, meeting artists, finding new potential collaborators.
Yeah, great idea, Johnny. Tony, same question.
I always try to imagine what the book looks like when it's done, and whenever I kind of feel like kind of fatigued or want to quit, I just kind of remember, like, okay, just imagine what it looks like when it's all done, and everyone can see what the full picture looks like. It's very easy for me to get lost in the weeds of very tiny details, and I'm obsessing over pinstripes on Alan's suit on one panel, and you think that, like, that'll bring down the whole story, and and then and then always kind of telling myself, in times where I feel like quitting, like, why don't you just quit tomorrow? Like, we'll do today, and then maybe we'll quit tomorrow. And so that kind of like procrastination sort of helps. But yeah, I mean, like, motivation for me with writing, it comes very naturally for me, because it's the only time that the shoe feels like it's on the right foot. I have pretended to do other jobs in the past, and it's just felt wrong. It didn't feel like, well, you're just doing this job and then you're doing the writing thing. It's like, no, you're pretending, and you need to stop doing what you're doing, and you need to only be writing. So when it comes to motivation for me, it's like, no, that it just feels like what I'm supposed to do. And keeping the motivation is just keep keeping your eye on the prize. Just remember what it's going to look like when it's done.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, and Amy will tell you this, like, when I'm at like my regular corporate job, I am finding loopholes on how to get out of shit. I'm late all the time. Anything, because it's not what I want to do.
Right.
But when I'm writing, lettering, doing putting Plastic City together, I am putting like 1,000% into it, so that just shows you that dichotomy there. But yeah, all great stuff. One thing I wanted to add to the motivation part is I think it gets easier to be motivated and overcome creative blocks the more you make comics. Like when you get past your first issue and then you're doing your sixth issue of something, it gets easier because you kind of know the expectations. You got to wait for artwork from the artists, and then you like George said, you're always working on something else on the side while that's finishing up, so yeah, it gets easier. Once you get that first one under your belt, then it's like kind of gold, after that. So, but Harry had a question for you guys too, and then I just got one from the chat. So we'll try to wrap these two up and then try to wrap up this episode. But go ahead, Harry.
Yeah. So basically, as writers, when you're writing your stories and you're creating your characters, in your minds, I'm sure you have an idea of what these characters look like, or you have a vague idea. When you see the artist's rendition of those of what you have written, do the characters that they have drawn match up to what you picture in your minds of what your characters might look like?
100%.
Yeah, so let's start with Tony on that one. Go for it.
No. What I love about the art team on Star Noir is that we are just on the exact same wavelength. The way that they envision the characters, it is not very dissimilar to how I had imagined them. So yeah, I mean, and that's why you got to kind of pick the right art team that really kind of gels with your vision.
Yep. How about you, Nandor?
Yes. So I've become a lot more I don't want to say like nitpicky, but like I've become a lot more detailed in how I want my characters to look and what I want them to be portrayed as and like in the story. And so I usually create like a visual document on top of my script that has descriptions of what they look like, what they're wearing, and I'll put pictures of materials or things that if I say, okay, they're going to be wearing this, I'll put a reference image there so that the artist exactly knows what I'm talking about. It can depend on your artist. Some artists are like, hey, I got this, like I'll take care of it and I'm happy to do it. Other artists are like, I need a visual document, so it kind of depends on who you're working with. But like with the Fabled Offering, I think I created like a 20-page Word document of the visuals for all the different characters in the world and how it should look like and how it should feel and what they should be wearing, because in a fantasy sci-fi setting, it can be really easy for your book to look like other places and other properties and worlds. And so it was really important for me to be like, okay, we're not going to do that. I want people to look at the book and be like, oh, this reminds me of something I love. Like I want that reaction, but I also want something like, oh, I haven't really seen those two materials or like concepts like married together within a character and what that might look like. So, so a lot of the time, you can find your character with your artist, and a good artist will ask you like, what are they supposed to be wearing? Why are they wearing this? What and if you miss something, the artist will be able to help you with that. And there for designs for characters, I'm going to be introducing a lot of new villains in the next issue of Man-Child, and
cool.
I drew like the characters in my sketchbook and the color palette for each of the characters, and sent those off to Jay, the artist, and we would have phone calls talking about what's practical for a character to wear, why are they wearing this, and have that one-on-one conversation, so that because there are some things that you're like, ooh, this would be so cool and this looks so cool, but then like on the page it might not work. It's like, wait a second, like that doesn't make sense, and so you really have to they're coming at it from a more visual perspective. We're coming at it from a more conceptual, like, ooh, this sounds cool in concept, but the artist will be like, well, that's just not practical, for what we're doing, or I'm gonna have to draw that like every panel every time. Like that's gonna be a pain in the butt. So like you kind of have to make it easy for everyone, but also just like palatable and marketable and all that kind of stuff.
It's almost like doing like a composite sketch of something, what happened, but you're trying to describe to the artist what the character looks like, what's in your head. Like for me, it's easy because like, if I picture something in my head, I can draw it immediately, and I can verify, yep, that's what I saw in my head. I can pretty much do that, so that's the one benefit. That's why I was
trying to take what the writer wants and then trying to make it
it's
the
like
challenge.
That's
definitely.
the composite sketch part.
Well, and it's a lot more, I mean, I found in my experience, it's a lot more fun to work with the artist when they're trying to take ownership of the character, or provide like they want the character to look cool as well. Like when they're passionate about the character, and because if you send something to an artist and they're kind of just like, okay, and they do it, like that's fine, like that's cool, but like it's a lot more fun, and I really appreciate it when the artist comes back to me and is like, what about this, and then we could do that, and they could wear this, and
I like
I know that they actually care about it, and they actually care about the character, and they care about drawing the character in a way that is iconic. You're looking for that iconic look in everything that you do, and so I really appreciate that. It's like, challenge me, I want to have that conversation.
100%. And then when that happens, it's awesome because it just makes things so much better. George, same question.
So I don't know about you, Keith, but like I sketch out my characters. Like when I'm thinking of a character, I'll sketch it out, and like this is what I'm thinking this character looks like, and I'll send that sketch out to the artist and say, okay, let me see your rendition of it. And
sometimes I do that.
Right. And usually their rendition is like so much better than mine. But at least I know, or they know what I'm looking for. This is what where I'm going with this. And
like I've had, like character designs made on a lot of my books. And like normally I don't have to do it like, go through 4 revisions or anything like that with the artist, because I kind of clearly, like, I think about it a lot. Like we said, you sit on stuff for a while, but then I describe it in such detail that usually it's like almost hits the first time. Like, that was especially with Mighty Mascots, because the characters were designed by Frankie Washington, but I told him what each should be. And to add to that point, like C-Rat was added from Frankie. Like I had never even thought to do that. He's like, how about a mechanical parrot? And I was like, fucking awesome. Like,
why not?
Just become his own character, And that's like cool. That's when an artist got so involved in it that it made it better, So so great stuff.
Good creative team will fill in the kind of the gaps in between each other's creative oversights.
Absolutely. Sure. And then Johnny, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Nothing, except for the fact that I was thinking back to like just one of the characters from Surrounded by Death, and in the description of the character I kept it very loose, and I said he's a Van Wilder type.
Okay.
And in doing so, the character came back looking Van Wilder adjacent.
Okay.
And then I think back to playing with stupid AI art, which is just a toy and not a real thing.
Yeah.
And me putting in something specific and getting something specific adjacent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. So that's kind of it. It's like you could, and in doing so, in the sense of saying, oh, it's a Van Wilder type to the artist, I feel like I'm also giving them enough clearance to kind of put like their own input or their own spin on it. So it's less dictative and more of like, well, he's kind of like this, so this is the cadence. So the artist is going to know, like, this is what, maybe some of his arm movements would be like, or this is kind of some of his attitude. Like, he would always have a wry smile on his face, that kind of thing,
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Before I move on to the question from the chat as well, if you guys are watching us on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere else, please come to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. We can always use the subscribers and the watch hours. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
please subscribe.
Yeah. So if you guys are watching and you like this kind of content, comment, let us know, and maybe we can do another one with a whole other panel next time.
It's the best YouTube channel on the internet.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that,
Tony. Appreciate it, man.
But a couple comments, and then I'll get to the final question here. Tate, thanks for joining us, Tate. My artist is always crap at portraying my characters. I am my own artist.
because self-doubt is the burden of being creative.
Self-doubt. But keep at it, Tate. The more you do it, the better you get. They always say every artist has 10,000 bad drawings in them before they get good. So, just think of it in that term, Ben Soto also said, "Got to run, guys, but great show tonight."
Thanks for hanging out,
Nandor
Ben.
And George, I got to get you to come on my channel.
Cool.
Tony, and you're always welcome back, brother.
Yes,
So
thanks, Ben.
yeah, guys, reach out to Ben or have Ben reach out to them. They would love to be guests, especially I think Nandor has an upcoming project, and so doesn't George. George has a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
And Tate said already sub. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Nice.
Appreciate it, man.
So the final question here from the chat is from DC Miller. Are writers open to writing every day, or is this something you guys already do? A scheduled hour or two to sit and write, regardless of if it ends up with a good result? Do you guys do that?
I found that in my experience, writing every day is not writing every day. It's just trying to think narratively and analytically about your story. I always think about when you like turn off a car engine and you can kind of hear the clicking sound of the engine. I always feel like when you write and then you go off to have dinner, take a shower, whatever, like you're still thinking about the story and still piecing together. And I think that is still writing. So I also at the same time I write like haikus just to kind of like as almost like warm-ups, just to kind of get something going, or I play like a spatial awareness puzzle like Portal or something like that, just to kind of like keep up my divergent thinking.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. How about you, Nandor? Do you write every day?
So I yes and no. Like I'm open to writing every day. Sometimes you just don't have the time, or you're really tired, after work or whatever. Like, I mean, there's other commitments that come up, but I am always thinking about my story. And a lot of the time, I find that my best writing is done when I can't do anything else. Like I'm like, okay, I have to sit down and write. Like it's calling me. Like when the story is telling you need to write me, because you don't, like, as a writer, you don't feel like you are living up to your potential or who you are as a person if you're not writing. It's like what you were destined to do, and you feel that like destiny calling you. It's like you feel called to be a writer. It feels like a calling more than, something that you are like forcing yourself to do. It's like you can't do anything else. It's like you have to do it. And so I also get really agitated when I'm reading a really good book or watching a really good movie, because I'm like, crap, I haven't been sitting down and doing this. Like I need to do this. And so
when you're blown away by something. Yeah, no,
you're like, dang it. Like tonight I'm going home and I'm working on this thing because it's been stirring. You know, I think great stories marinate. I think you have to think about them for a while. I think you can write a few pages, think about it, get back to it, see like, okay, you know, do I like where this is going? Is this, you know, where I wanted it to be? J. Michael Straczynski had a really good tip where when you're working on a project and you're doing your writing, don't finish the scene that you're writing.
Yes.
Because the next day or the next time you get to write, like you can't help but want to go back and write it because you're like, I know how this is supposed to finish. And because when you're done with the scene, it's like a mini completion. You know, it's like mission complete. You finish that scene. It kind of gives you leeway to be like, oh, I like when I get back to that, I know where to pick up from. But if you leave it hanging, it just helps you get back in the zone and where you need to be, and that way you can transition into the next scene or the next part of it.
That's interesting theory. I never thought to do that.
Well, one thing I do is kind of bouncing off that, Nandor, is whenever I go to start the script again, I'll always start from the top and then rewrite down. And I'll
that's what I do too, John.
So,
wherever I stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you start changing stuff as you're going.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, I can
100%.
rework this. Like that's where the discoveries are made for sure. You know,
that. And I also love when you put a script away for a couple weeks and it feels like someone else wrote it. Like you were just in your head and you're like, shit, I came up with this weird, you know, like some of the, it's wild.
I'm good. Like, this is good.
How about you, George? Do you write every day?
No. I mean, I like try to set aside time like Mondays and Tuesdays for sure, because Tuesdays I do the show. Mondays I'm just like definitely just in here writing stuff even for the show, you know what I mean? And like and then on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday mornings I'll do, you know, I'll wake up, do a little something, but like I'm not writing every single day. Like it's like I have, because I think at that point you're just like, oh, I gotta write today, you know what I mean? Like and that you want to
becomes like a burden.
It's a chore now, right? It's a job. I have to go do this. But no, I mean, I love to write anyway. So whenever I can, you know, even if it's on your phone, you're just typing something in.
Yeah, you're always working on that next screenplay.
Yeah, you're always and to Tony's point, you're always thinking about your story. So yes, your mind is always going. You're always doing that. So yeah, I try to do that.
Well, and you know, I don't write every day because I still owe you. I still owe you that short story from when I was on your show like 2 weeks ago. But no, same. I don't write every day, but when I do know I'm gonna write, I make sure the day's clear or what, you know, like my whole, you know, I have hours to sit and write, you know. But also like Nandor, Tony, and George, I think about stuff constantly. Where the story's going, what's the next project, what's the next idea to work on, things like that, you know. So in that respect, always, you know, something's going on in the head, you know. So Johnny, same with you.
It's, you know, so it's writing is a function, right? Creating is the process that we go through in our head where we put the pieces together that we then lead to the function of writing. Do I write every day? Yes, I work at a job where I'm writing constant emails, cases that I have to write up for clients and based upon malfunctions in their software and things of that nature. So I write a lot. So it makes it really hard when I have to buckle down and actually write a script of a story. So when it comes to writing, a lot of it is creating in my head going, okay, I think I have the pieces together to start making my roadmap. And then that's when I sit down, make the roadmap. Even though it's kind of circles and lines and a little bit's kind of artistic, it's still writing blocks. And then when it comes to actually doing the function of putting the pieces together into a script, that is what I would call actually writing. That's when I'm writing.
Awesome. Yeah. Great ender to that. That's awesome. So we're gonna start wrapping this up. We've been going 2 hours, if you can
Wow.
believe it. It just feels like it's
Yeah, that's
gone
crazy.
by. In a
That's what
snap.
happens when you got a star-studded episode.
Oh my god. And so I'm just gonna go through real quick. I have like links for you guys to follow all these wonderful creators. So I'm gonna pop it up here. First, follow Tony back Star Noir Book 2. It's Second Chance campaign on Indiegogo. And if you like the stuff we've been talking about all night, you're gonna find it in this story, especially if you like noir. Noir mixed with sci-fi period pieces, right, Tony? If you want to give it a quick elevator pitch.
Yeah, LA Noir meets the X-Files. As it says right there, 1940s detective who teams up with a gray alien to stop a shapeshifter who's killing LAPD officers in Central Station. There are 6 books in this murder mystery. We did the first one. We're halfway through finishing the second book. Just keeping the train rolling.
Perfect.
Right on.
Moving on to Nandor's project. This is going to be launching on Indiegogo soon. What's the date on this one, Nandor? This is a Second Chance campaign for Fabled Offerings.
Yeah, so I don't have a concrete date yet. I've been lining up different shows and kind of reaching out to people and seeing who's available to like do a launch stream with them. So, but it will be launching in April. It will be next month at some point. And the Kickstarter funded. The book is almost done. So we are going to have the book like shipped out to you pretty much right away around like May or June is kind of the deadline for getting the book fulfilled. So that's really exciting. And with this campaign in particular, we're going to be unlocking stretch goals is going to be the goal, because I have some kind of goodies that I want to unlock that every backer will be able to get in on. So if you miss the Kickstarter, you can, be a part of all the different stretch goals that we'll unlock. And I'm also gonna I want to do a black and white edition or version of this book, a director's cut. And so that's also going to be a stretch goal during the campaign. So you'll basically, if we hit that stretch goal, you'll be getting 2 books for the price of 1, because that will be included in the reward. So anyways, so the Fabled Offering, it's a sci-fi fantasy one-shot epic. And it's about a grand princess on a quest to save herself. And if you love, Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Dune, everyone's talking about Dune right now. And so if you love those things, if you love a character-driven story about a warrior princess, then this book was made for you.
Awesome.
That art looks awesome right there.
That's a great art. Yeah, really good stuff.
The colors just really jump off.
Yeah.
Now I pulled up 3 links for George, and we'll go through them real quick here. So this George, you tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, Dead of Night is a story that actually was created by ASAP Imagination, Paul Hayden. He asked me to write the second issue for him, and it's the story of a knight, a hero knight who kind of falls from grace after the event happens in the world of ASAP Imagination. And this is a story of him and what's happened to him. Where has he come on? What's going on? So this is issue number 2. It's available now. Awesome. It just dropped today, actually. So yeah. If you
okay. So people can go and grab it.
Oh, yeah, awesome. They can pick it up.
The link is in the chat. If you want to go check that out and support our buddy George here.
Yeah. So
also, this is a pre-order for Russ, your 5377.
Yeah,
this is your first graphic novel.
That's my graphic novel. Yeah, 6 chapters. It's 6 issues compiled into one. It's a story of a 17-year-old boy who lives in the future, sometime in the future. I don't tell you when. And the reason why I don't give you a date is because I'm a big fan of Back to the Future. 2015 went by and cars are still not flying. So like, I don't want to say what year it is. So it's sometime in the future.
Don't want to date it.
And he lives in an orphanage, which is really it's really a home where they're trying to create the perfect specimen. When Russ figures this out, him and his boys have to escape, and this is the story of their escape and what happens. Will they escape,
awesome.
Will they not? So that's Russ, and that's going to be available this spring. So you could pre-order the book now. It's being published through ASAP Imagination as well.
Perfect. And then finally, we got the Get Your Meds YouTube channel.
Yeah, Get Your Meds YouTube channel. So what I'm doing on the channel is I have a show called The Art of Comic Writing, which Tony's been on.
Yep.
Johnny, you've been on it. Keith, you've been on it. Nandor, you're coming on. I got to get you on this thing.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
And we simply sit down. I ask you questions about writing, similar to what we did here. just your philosophies on writing. I don't necessarily promote a specific project that you're working on, simply because I want the shelf life of the book, of the show, to be forever. So, like, for example, right now, Tony, you were on the show, so I'll share that link, and in your show notes is the new link to your to your Indiegogo.
Yeah,
so
cool. Thank you.
It lives forever. So yeah, so if you guys want to subscribe to the channel, I'm trying to grow it as well. So get your meds on YouTube.
Yeah, very much like this show tonight. So if you guys enjoyed what you saw here, definitely pop over to Get Your Meds and give George a sub. And if you're a writer, get in touch.
Yeah,
George will. George's DMs are open, right, George?
Yeah, hit me up. Hit me up. We'll schedule something up. I pre-record them; they're not live. So so I pre-record them and then I air them out. Right now, I have shows going out in May, I think. So
very cool.
Yeah.
And just a little self-promotion for me. Plastic City Comic-Con, Saturday, July 20th. George will be there. Harry will be there. I wish Johnny would be there, but he's got San Diego, which stinks. But we'll get him next year. And maybe Nandor and Tony, one day we got you guys over to the Plastic City Comic-Con. I'm so excited, too. If you're a wrestling fan, we got Jimmy Hart joining us, which is amazing.
Awesome. All right. That's cool.
One of the greatest wrestling managers in history.
Still looks very young. He's like a vampire.
Yeah. Hey, whatever works, you know?
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm wicked excited. The guest list is growing. As you can see, we got like a pretty big list here. So it's still growing. I'm excited for the new location as well. Yeah. Like we just we're in a hotel. We're in the Hilton now.
Oh, cool.
Put the link in here so everyone can check it out. It's not going to be as big as Game On, but it's going to be close. We think we got about 200 tables there, and the big thing for the show is $10. You can't find a convention under $30.
That's
now.
Awesome. Yeah.
And the reason I do that is because I want people to come in and spend the money with the artists, buy comics, spread the love. Like, this show was never about making money. It was all about just getting exposure for Artist Alley. Johnny knows, he was there the first year. It was
first year was amazing.
I thought the fire marshal was going to shut us down.
Yeah, it was just, all of Lemonster showed up. It was just like, it was a thing to do because it was free entrance at the first one. So it was a thing to do for Lemonster for that day. So everybody showed up. I was all I had was my issue 1 of my very first comic, and I sold out of it. I had no business selling out of that book, but I did at that show.
And that's when I first met Johnny, oddly enough. We sort of think we met before, but I really got to know Johnny that first Plastic City Comic-Con. And look what's come out of it, you know?
I know, right? One of my best buds.
Yeah, awesome. But so I'm going to start wrapping this up. We're at about 2 hours and 10 minutes. I want to thank the audience for watching this and, and sharing your love of indie comics and writers. I mean, we can't do this without you guys. So it's like, so we appreciate anybody that comes in and checks out our books and engages with the channel, talks with follow all these creators. If you guys want to just shout out your social medias real quick, I'd say start with Tony and then go to Nandor and George. Go ahead.
On Twitter at T/J, phonetically spelled out T/J. On Instagram at BananaBat. I show mostly Star Noir art on both of these things, so you can check me out there.
Awesome. Nandor?
Yeah, just find me at Nandor Fox. I'm probably the only Nandor that you know or that you'll find on there. Or, like especially like Fox, whatever. So like it's pretty easy to find me on X or X Twitter, as I like to call it, and also Instagram, and also subscribe to my newsletter. I got foxholecomics.substack.com. You can see what I'm up to and keep up with me that way.
Beautiful. George?
Just go to getyourmeds.com. So play on my last name, Medina. So it's not like, I'm selling drugs or anything. It's getyourmeds.com. Check. Everything's on this. All my social network information will be on there.
ASAP says, great show, lads. Awesome. And Johnny, any last words before we close this out for the evening?
No, I just want to thank Tony, Nandor, and George for coming on the show. Taking the time out of our busy schedules. We greatly appreciate it. We greatly appreciate you guys sharing your projects and your love of writing and your insights and your wisdom with us and our audience. Thank you.
Absolutely. Harry, anything you want to say?
No, thank you for letting me be the fly in your writing circle.
Soup.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, writing soup.
In the writing fly trap.
Yeah. That was good.
Great metaphor, guys. Awesome. Yeah, and I want to thank you guys all for being here as well. I think this was an excellent episode, and I learned a lot tonight. Like I didn't think I would, I thought I heard it all about writing, but honestly, just hearing different techniques and stuff really, like, I think, and it's very helpful to the audience, I think, as well, because I'm assuming most of the audience is writers or creatives, and maybe some fans just wanting to maybe pick up the pencil for the first time. So this will be great. And then I'll cut this episode up into small chunks and
breakout clips,
release it so people can, definitely see more of it and digest it in a small packages and stuff. So, but all right, everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. We'll be back actually next week with another guest. Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern is when we do our live streams normally. So definitely join us in the chat. We love hearing from you. We love hearing your questions. And most importantly, read some comics, everybody. So, all right, everybody, have a great night, and we will talk to you later. Bye.
Peace.